Over here at Murphy's Chapel, that's at the church right there. The old days, it was actually turned around the other direction. It faced the river. The old road went along the river. And when they put in the new road that's running in front of the church, they actually turned that church around. This whole area here today, subdivisions and a little bit of farm fields here. This is the old Josiah Maples farm. My fourth great grandfather, 1746 to 1820. His old marker, the new marker that the DAR put up. The old marker that the DAR did years ago that me and Sam found. And it was just laying ground, but we finally cemented it down so it would get taken away. An old tree here, probably been here since Josiah's been here. A couple of the biggest holly bushes you'll ever see. But this became the Murphy's Chapel Church Cemetery. But what's interesting is that all these graves are so close together, but right here where Josiah's at, there's actually a few small rocks, but there is about 20 foot by 20 foot area that obviously at one time must have had graves, because the church never did, in the late 1880s and early 1900s, they never buried nobody else next to them. So this is the original family plot. There's probably, I'm suspecting maybe Rufy's buried next to him. She's not buried down in McMinn County. Josiah's brother Peter could also be here, but I believe he's also buried in McMinn County. Anyway, this is the old Josiah Maples farm here in Sevier County, Tennessee. And back over there is what they call Granny's Knob. A lot of you Missouri Maples, Josiah Jr., a lot of his kids told a story about being born at the base of Granny's Knob. We'll drive over there next. Here we are on the old Josiah Maples farm. You can see Mount LeConte in the distance. Very last ridge, Mount LeConte. Shields Mountain right here in the forefront. Got geese here in the field. There's a wet spring where his tree line is right here in front of us. And I've been told that Josiah's cabin used to sit right down here. That spring goes underneath the water, goes underneath the road today, it hits the river over there. And the old Price place is across the river up there. I'm here at the old Kerr Loveday Cemetery. This is on top of the hill above Josiah's farm. You can see Mount LeConte right there. You can see the Chahowee Mountain there on the other side of Sevierville. And for the Maples who went to Oklahoma, right down there is the old John Kerr farm that married into Guilford Maples line and went west. This is Granny's Knob right back here. There's another view from the cemetery, Kerr Loveday Cemetery. You could pronounce it Carr if you wanted to. Josiah's farm is back down in there. You got Mount LeConte and the mountain range back there, Granny Knob here. And down here's where Thomas Maples' farm was at. And of course you got this gorgeous mountains, gorgeous view all around this cemetery up on a little knob ridge. Well, I'm on top of Caton's Chapel Cemetery here, and we have quite a few Maples buried here. There's Paul Winfield Maples. Over here is Arlie Maples. Here's George Washington Maples, married to Rebecca McMahon. But what's interesting about this old section of the cemetery, over here is James Maples, 1868-1925, married to Nancy. And it's very old McMahons here, but going way back, this is where Elijah Maples is buried at. His daughter Rebecca is buried here. Her daughter Mary is buried here. I can remember barely reading their stones in this section right here in the old days. Right here is Henry Caton and his wife Mary. This whole area here is known as Caton's Chapel. You can see back toward Bullhead Mountain right there inside the National Park. This big valley down here. That barn right there, this is the old Artie Maples farm. This is probably the old Elijah Maples farm. Elijah was 1830 census living right next door to Abijah Maples, who was Wilson's boy, William Abijah Maples, who's part of the Gatlinburg group. Anyway, it's a beautiful valley, and this is not very far from where Josiah Maples lived as well. So Elijah, either Josiah's boy or maybe Josiah's nephew. But anyway, there's a lot of old emeralds here, and top of this hill is where the old section of this cemetery is located. But this is we're in Sevier County, Tennessee. Getting out a little lower, you below the tree, but that's Artie Maples' old house there, and the barn, and so you can get up here with it. You can see the Smoky Mountains way back in the back. We're about 20 miles from the park. And this is Shields Mountain back here. Dottie Woods on the other side of that. And pretty big cemetery. It's Sunday morning, and we're here at Bethel Baptist Church. It's probably the original log structures inside that brick and mortar house today. These are Maples graves down here. And the old part of the old cemetery, a lot of the old graves are now gone. But these two graves right here is Thomas Maples and Lydia Ashley. We're right over the ridge from Josiah Maples' farm, and we're at the base of Granny's Knob. Let's walk around. This is Thomas Maples, my third great, and his wife Lydia. This stone here is supposed to be, if I get my shadow out of the way, supposed to be his slave named Sarah. It's also to be buried beside him. And it's supposed to have, at one time, had like a wooden gate around the grave. Here's Thomas Maples Jr. and Annalisa Maples. Here's Sam Lowe, who's married to Sarah, who's Thomas's daughter. It's another beautiful place. A lot of Maples buried in this graveyard, of course, and other local clans. And we're on the upper end of Jones Cove. Supposedly up in those woods there are a few slave graves. Here's Nancy Maples Maynard, who is the daughter of Josiah Maples Jr. I'm here in the old Fair Garden community. Here's the old store. You sit here, and there's a shed up there, and some very old homes here in the area. And in the middle of this valley, we're today what's known as just outside News Center. It's here in Sevier County on the northeast section of the county. But there's actually a wet creek running right through this tree line. This little small wet branch. It runs for miles and miles down through this valley and makes its way over to Douglas Lake. It's known as Flat Creek. And William C. Maples, who went to Alabama, and his farm ran along the edge of this creek, somewhere in this general area. I'm not exactly sure where. That's a pretty old house right there. And this is one of those small communities in Sevier County. There's a lot of pretty farms. We're close to English Mountain. And back that way is Granny's Knob. And we're about 10 miles from where Josiah is buried at. Well, I'm standing right here in front of the old James and Thursday Maples house right along the river here off Highway 66, Douglas Dam Road. Got hotels and stuff here next door. But this is the old Alder Branch group of maples. There's a side view of the old James and Thursday Maples house. Thought I'd videotape it before it maybe gets tore down one of these days. Old area known as Catlettsburg in the old days. Before this tombstone here gets totally worn out, this is Nancy Maples, Nancy Butler Maples, who was married to the old James Maples in relation to the church. So right here next to the gravel road on this side, but the stone here is just about worn out, but you can still better read it. Nancy Maples, and she died like in that's in 1853, something like that. So here's the grave of Thomas Ashley, 1756, 1837, and Lydia, his wife. And of course we're at the Alder Branch Church Cemetery, the old Alder Branch Church. Right down this field, right down here is where Thomas Ashley's house set. A lot of maples buried here, and James Maples group.